Have you ever wondered why some people seem to transform their lives overnight, while the rest of us struggle for years and barely move an inch? Why do some people lose 50 pounds, build a business, or master a new skill, while others, maybe you, maybe me, start with a burst of motivation, only to burn out, give up, and return to old habits? We live in a world obsessed with big leaps. Go big or go home. No pain, no gain. Change your life in 30 days. But what if I told you that this obsession with dramatic change is the very reason most people fail? What if the real secret to 10x results isn't about doing more, but about doing less, much less, so little in fact, that it almost feels like you're not changing at all? There's an ancient Japanese philosophy that has quietly transformed millions of lives, from Olympic athletes to world-class artists, from CEOs to everyday people who just wanted to be a little better than yesterday. It's called KAIZEN, and today I'm going to show you how this simple, almost boring principle can help you achieve results you never thought possible, by doing less than you ever imagined. But before we dive in, I want you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, what's the one area of your life where you've tried to change, failed, and started to believe maybe you just can't? Hold that thought. Because by the end of this video, you'll see that the problem isn't you. It's the way you've been taught to change. In the next few minutes, I'll share with you the story of a man who went from rock bottom to a life he never dreamed possible, not by working harder, but by working less. I'll reveal the science behind why big goals backfire and why tiny, almost invisible steps are the key to lasting transformation. And I'll give you a step-by-step blueprint to apply Kaizen in your own life, starting today. But be warned, this isn't a motivational hype video. This is about real, sustainable change. The kind that doesn't just make you better for a week, but makes you different for a lifetime. So, if you're ready to discover the ancient Japanese secret to achieving 10x results by doing less, let's begin. Let me introduce you to someone. His name is Arjun. Arjun was, in many ways, just like you and me. He was 34, working a demanding job in IT, married, with a young daughter who adored him. On the outside, he looked like he had it together. But inside, he was drowning. Every January, Arjun would make a list of resolutions. Lose weight. Wake up at 5 a.m., read more books, start a side business, be a better father. And every year, by February, the list was buried under a pile of excuses. He'd start strong, joining a gym, buying self-help books, downloading productivity apps. But within weeks, the old patterns would return. Late nights, skipped workouts, junk food, endless scrolling on his phone. He hated himself for it. He'd look in the mirror and see not just the extra weight, but the weight of broken promises. He'd see the disappointment in his wife's eyes when he came home too tired to play with their daughter. He'd see the gap between the man he wanted to be and the man he was. Maybe you know that feeling. The shame of trying and failing over and over until you start to believe that maybe this is just who you are. But Arjun's story didn't end there, because one day something happened that changed everything. It was a Sunday afternoon. Arjun was sitting on the couch, half watching TV, half scrolling through social media, when his daughter Mira came running in. "Papa, let's go to the park. Please, please, please." He looked at her, her eyes bright, her face full of hope. He wanted to say yes. He really did. But he was exhausted. His back hurt. His knees ached. He mumbled, "Maybe later, beta. Papa's tired." She looked at him for a moment, then quietly walked away. That night, as he lay in bed, Arjun replayed that moment over and over. He remembered his own childhood, how his father always seemed too busy, too tired, too absent. He had promised himself he'd be different, but here he was, repeating the same pattern. He felt a wave of shame, then anger, then despair. He got up, went to the bathroom, and stared at himself in the mirror. "Why can't I change?" he whispered. He didn't know it then, but that question was the beginning of everything. The next day, Arjun confided in a colleague at work, an older man named Mr. Sato, who had always seemed calm, centered, almost unshakable. Mr. Sato listened quietly, then smiled. "Arjun, have you ever heard of Kaizen?" Arjun shook his head. It's a Japanese word. It means change for the better, but not in the way you think. Not big dramatic change. Tiny, almost invisible change. The kind that feels so small it's almost embarrassing. Arjun frowned. How can something so small make a difference? Mr. Sato leaned in. Let me tell you a story. In Japan, Mr. Sato began, there's a kind of bamboo that grows in a very peculiar way. For the first 5 years after it's planted, nothing seems to happen. You water it, you care for it, but above the ground, there's no sign of growth. People think it's dead, but underground, the bamboo is quietly growing a vast network of roots, preparing for something extraordinary. Then in the 5th year, something miraculous happens. The bamboo shoots up, sometimes as much as 90 feet in just 6 weeks. People see the sudden growth and call it a miracle. But the real miracle was happening all along, hidden from view. That's KAIZEN, small, steady, invisible progress that suddenly transforms everything. Arjun listened, unsure whether to believe it. Mr. Sato smiled. If you're willing, I'll show you how to apply KAIZEN in your own life. But you have to promise me one thing. No big goals, no grand gestures. Just one tiny step every day, no matter how small. Arjun nodded, not knowing that this was the moment his life would begin to change. That night, Arjun sat at his kitchen table, notebook open, pen in hand. He wrote down all the things he wanted to change. Lose weight, exercise, read, spend more time with family. But then he remembered Mr. Sato's words. Just one tiny step. He chose the simplest thing he could think of. Every morning, after brushing his teeth, he would drink a glass of water. That's it. No diet, no gym. Just a glass of water. It felt almost ridiculous. How could something so small matter? But he had tried everything else. Why not this? The next morning, he drank his glass of water. It took less than a minute. He felt nothing. No fireworks, no sense of accomplishment. But he did it again the next day. And the next. After a week, he noticed something strange. He started to look forward to that glass of water. It became a small ritual, a promise to himself that he could keep. For the first time in years, he felt a flicker of hope. What Arjun didn't know was that he was tapping into one of the most powerful forces in human psychology, the power of small wins. Research from Harvard and Stanford has shown that when we set huge, ambitious goals, our brains often rebel. The bigger the goal, the more likely we are to feel overwhelmed, anxious, and paralyzed. But when we set tiny, almost laughably easy goals, something magical happens. We lower the barrier to action. We build confidence. We create a sense of momentum. Each small win sends a signal to our brain, I can do this. And over time, those small wins add up to massive change. This is the essence of KAIZEN, incrementalism, the art of making progress so small, it's impossible to fail. After 2 weeks of drinking water every morning, Arjun decided to add another tiny step. He would walk for 5 minutes after dinner. Not a workout, not a run. Just a slow, gentle walk around the block. At first, it felt pointless. But after a few days, he noticed he was sleeping better. His mood improved. He started to look forward to those walks, sometimes inviting his daughter to join him. One night, as they walked together, Meera slipped her hand into his. "Papa, I like this," she said softly. Arjun felt a lump in his throat. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he was becoming the father he wanted to be. He didn't realize it, but KAIZEN was already working its magic, not just on his habits, but on his relationships, his self-esteem, his entire life. But change is never a straight line. 3 weeks in, Arjun had a terrible day at work. Deadlines, angry clients, a fight with his boss. He came home exhausted, skipped his walk, and ordered pizza. The next morning, he woke up feeling like a failure. The old voice in his head returned, "See, you'll never change. You always give up." He almost gave in, but then he remembered something Mr. Sato had said. KAIZEN isn't about never failing. It's about always returning. So he drank his glass of water. He went for his walk that evening, even though he didn't feel like it. And just like that, the streak was alive again. Let's pause for a moment and look deeper. KAIZEN isn't just a productivity hack. It's a philosophy, a way of living. In Japan, Kaizen is woven into the fabric of daily life. It's how Toyota became the world's most efficient car company. It's how sushi chefs spend decades perfecting the art of rice. It's how ordinary people become extraordinary, not through giant leaps, but through 1,000 tiny steps. Kaizen teaches us that perfection is a myth, that progress is made not by doing more, but by doing less, consistently, patiently, relentlessly. It's about trusting the process, even when you can't see the results. It's about believing that small things done daily become big things over time. Modern neuroscience backs this up. Studies show that habits are formed not by willpower, but by repetition. The brain is a pattern-making machine. The more you repeat a behavior, the more automatic it becomes. But here's the catch. If you try to change too much too fast, your brain resists. It sees change as a threat and triggers anxiety, procrastination and self-sabotage. But if you change just a little, so little that your brain barely notices, it slips past the resistance. It becomes easy. It becomes automatic. This is why Kaizen works when everything else fails. After a month, Arjun had built a chain of tiny habits. Drink water in the morning, 5-minute walk after dinner, read 1 page of a book before bed, write down 1 thing he was grateful for. None of these things felt like much, but together, they started to change everything. He lost a few pounds, not much, but enough to notice. He felt more energetic. He was less irritable with his family. He started to believe for the first time that real change was possible. This is the compound effect of Kaizen. Small actions, repeated daily, create exponential results. Then came the real test. Arjun's company announced layoffs. The stress was overwhelming. He started working late, skipping meals, losing sleep. The old Arjun would have spiraled, junk food, late nights, self-pity. But this time, something was different. Even on the worst days, he kept his tiny habits alive. He drank his water. He walked, even if just for a minute. He read a single page. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. When the storm passed, Arjun realized he hadn't just survived, he had grown stronger. Kaizen had given him an anchor, a way to stay grounded, no matter what life threw at him. 6 months later, Arjun was a different man. He had lost 10 kilos, not through dieting, but through tiny, sustainable changes. He was reading more, sleeping better, spending more time with his family. But the real transformation wasn't on the scale or in his habits. It was in his identity. He no longer saw himself as someone who tried and failed. He saw himself as someone who kept his promises, no matter how small. He was no longer chasing motivation. He was building momentum. He was no longer waiting for the perfect moment. He was creating progress, 1 tiny step at a time. Let me ask you a question. What if you stopped trying to change everything at once? What if you let go of the need for dramatic transformation? What if you trusted that doing less, consistently, patiently, could lead to more than you ever imagined? This is the wisdom of Kaizen. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. It's about making change so easy, so small, that you can't help but succeed. It's about believing that you are worthy of progress, even if it's just 1 tiny step today.